Is it okay to act like the person you want to become, even if you don't feel that way now? Hi there, men's dating coach HarryWilmington here, founder of IntrovertDatingSuccess.com. And on today's show, we're going to be answering a question from a guy who wants to know if in the course of dating, should he be doing things in a way that he hopes to be one day, even if at the moment he doesn't feel that way, or does that give off a sense of him being a false version of himself? Subscribe to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/HarryWilmington to be notified when I post up new videos. Today we're talking about, should you be acting towards women in a way that you hope to actually feel like one day, or if you should just be acting the way that you actually currently are. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Is it wrong to want to strive to be a different version of yourself? Or should you just be more in tune with the person that you are and hope that somebody eventually comes along that accepts you exactly as you are right now? And it's very complicated because, of course, if you're watching this show or listening to this show on a podcast, chances are you recognize that there are things about yourself that you might want to consider changing in order to be more appealing to the opposite sex. But you might also feel that by doing those things, you are now being a false version of yourself that's not truly authentic, and that can make you feel some kind of way sometimes. And that's what this guy's going through. So we're going to talk about his situation, how it relates to what you may be feeling, and what you should be doing about that, okay? Real quick, I just want to thank you guys that have been subscribing to my YouTube channel. This channel has started to get a lot of increases in subscribers. Right now, I'm at 350 subscribers. So to all of you guys, I want to say thank you. Right now, the goal is to try to get to 1,000 subscribers. And so if you're not currently subscribed and just listening on the podcast, then go to youtube.com/HarryWilmington to subscribe to the channel, okay? Also, guys, mark your calendars, March 29th. I am going to be opening up my Introvert Dating Success full-on coaching program. I haven't opened this program in 2 years now. I've been adding some tweaks to it, but I finally got it to where I want it to be. And so for you guys that have been listening to this show and you like the advice, but you really want to do some life-altering things to be able to change the way you feel about yourself, to change the way that your dating process works, to figure out once and for all how to date as an introvert and feel comfortable in your skin while doing it. And if you're a guy that actually wants a few weeks of personalized one-on-one coaching with me, in addition to various video modules and other things that can really help you to solidify once and for all this skill set of dating that you need to actually land women, then that's going to be coming out on March 29th. So mark your calendars for that. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to be really talking more about what's going to be involved in that program. And on March 29th is when it's going to open for a 2-week VIP enrollment. All right. So this isn't something I open like any time of the year. It's going to be for 2 weeks where I'm going to open it up to you guys to be able to have access to the program. You'll be able to see what it's all about. And I think I'm going to throw a webinar on that day also to answer any questions that you may have about this program. Okay. But that's March 29th. So be on the lookout for that. In the meantime, if you have any questions you want answered on one of these shows, you can write to me at HarryWilmington@gmail.com. And I will do it as one of these programs. All right. So all that said, let's go ahead and get into this guy's specific situation. So he says, so I have ADHD and sometimes I have bad emotional reactions to stupid stuff. Like I might feel salty if someone cancels a date because something came up, even though I know I shouldn't. So in these scenarios, I have begun to type something supportive instead. However, sometimes I feel guilty, like, am I portraying a fake version of myself? I know I shouldn't be so salty, so I text like someone who isn't salty because I know that's proper. I know the right thing isn't expressing saltiness either when I know that's just annoying and the inappropriate thing to do. Point being, this is just an example. I want to be someone that doesn't match the emotions I'm feeling because I know the emotions are sometimes not appropriate. Is that okay? Can I text and talk like the person I wish I was? Can I be supportive even though my emotions are wanting me to say something else? Or does that mean I'm portraying a fake version of myself that I should feel guilty about? So I like this question because, like I said, this is something that most of you guys have probably experienced in the course of learning how to be a better dater. Part of that means having to let go of things that you were doing before that were actually not effective. But understand that everything that you've done up to this point in your dating life has been built based on previous beliefs. And as a result of those beliefs, you develop certain habits that you thought should work in order to attract women. And as you've gone through your journey, you might start to realize like, oh, some of these things that I was doing, I find it's not actually keeping women around. It's actually making them feel annoyed. It's causing them to lose interest in me. And so you might think to yourself, okay, I no longer want to do those things. But understand, just because you have the logical knowledge of knowing that there are things that you're doing that are a hindrance to your dating life does not mean that you're not going to be uncomfortable when you're trying to not do them, okay? Because you've built up these habits, and habits become integral parts of us that can be hard to let go of. It's just like when you have a bad diet and you eat sugar. One of the first things they recommend is you cut out sugar if you're trying to lose weight, right? So just because you have the logical knowledge of you shouldn't eat this sugar does not mean that you're not going to have that draw to want to eat it, or that you're not going to feel off balance when you're not putting it in your body. So the same is very true of if you have certain things that you would react to in the past that you're recognizing aren't good things. So he brought out a perfect example of this, where it's like, in the past, let's say you plan a date with a woman, and then the day of the date comes and she says, "Oh, I can't do it, I got to cancel." Well, your first feeling is going to be to want to react to this person in a very strong way that could also be a very negative way. You might want to say things like, "Well, how dare you cancel, and you're wasting my time, and I set up this date for you and us to have a good time, and suddenly you're just last minute canceling, and this isn't really fair to me," or whatever. And you might feel those things. And you might feel as though if you don't say those things, then you're not letting out the real reaction that you would actually have in this scenario. But as you start to date more, you'll start to realize that reacting the wrong way in this scenario, for example, could be to your detriment because you don't necessarily know what's behind that action the other person took. For example, in this case, he might have thought, okay, well, she canceled because she doesn't like me anymore, or she found me unattractive all of a sudden, or she found a better person to go out with. And those could be reasons why she's canceling. But there could be other reasons that have nothing to do with that. There could be a reason like, a relative came into town last minute that she wants to see, or a relative suddenly died on her, or she realized that she had to stay late at work for some reason that she wasn't aware of, and then they had like a last minute meeting that came up to whereby she couldn't go on the date. Now, either way, the result is the date gets canceled. But the thing is that if you react one way, then she's going to see you as a person that doesn't understand when things come up, and you're a negative ninny, and you're really, clingy to her and anxious and stuff, and she's not going to want to date you. Whereas the other version, where you don't react so strongly, maybe just say, okay, we'll just do it some other time. She sees a guy that's more understanding. Now she actually feels bad for canceling the date, and she wants to make it up to you even more so the next time that she sees you. So you really have to look at, okay, what are the behaviors that you have right now that you would instantly react to in certain ways, or feel about certain ways about certain things, that if you either got rid of those things or kind of really looked at a bigger scope of what's going on, if you took those things out of the equation, you could have better results. And I kind of put together a list of examples of where being yourself in the moment doesn't work in your favor. Because understand, and I've said this before in the show, I look back to Hitch, where in the movie Will Smith's character Hitch says that who you are is a very fluid thing. Meaning who you are in the dating world really is based on the things that you've learned and how you've learned to react to those certain things, okay? And all those things can change up. Like how I reacted to things in my 20s, for example, in terms of how girls responded to me when I would hit on them, or when I would say certain things or try to ask them out on dates, is drastically different from how I react to it now. What's the difference? Well, one of the big things is I learned to be indifferent to outcomes. I learned that a woman's dating choice is ultimately her choice. And as much as I want to try to negotiate that out of her, if she feels that we're not going to be meant for each other based on whatever her standards are, then that's fine. Just like I have my own standards I'm not going to date certain kind of women who are into certain things or look certain ways. Like, I can't blame a woman for that. But once I started reacting less, then I found that it was easier for me to date, and more women wanted to date me as a result. So these are just examples of if these are ways that you might be now that could actually not be very helpful to you. So for example, you wanted to react to someone that's not texting back right away. And I've talked about this on the show before, where I've dated girls who they have very busy jobs during the day. I'm fortunate that I kind of live more of the lifestyle where I'm like a freelancer and I do this. I give you guys dating advice and stuff like that. So my time is a lot more flexible. So some women that I date, I would text at like 9 a.m, and they might not be able to get to me until 5 or 6 o'clock at night just because they're so busy all day. But imagine if I was that guy that was like, yeah, I texted you 5 minutes ago. Why didn't you text me back? And I've dated girls like that they would text me and I couldn't get back to them right away. And they would be all up in arms about how I couldn't text them back right away. It was like cheating on them, et cetera, et cetera. And it made me not want to be around them because I'm like, dude, I just needed some time to do some stuff. I was going to get back to you, but now you look like that person doesn't know how to handle themselves if I don't respond to them in the way that I want them to. So you got to look at, are you being that kind of guy? If yourself right now is being the guy that freaks out at a woman that doesn't text back right away, you might want to consider changing that. Another thing, trying to negotiate with a woman when she says she wants to break up with you. I found in my past when there were girls that I liked that suddenly told me that they didn't like me anymore, and I started trying to negotiate all the reasons why we should still be together and why they should like me, that it would push them away. And then I found out by accident that when a girl came to me and said, hey, I don't want to see you anymore, and my response was just like, okay, that they would be more apt to not understand why I was reacting so calmly and want to actually try to get back with me. So if I was being myself in this situation now where a girl wants to break up with me and I say, oh my God, how could you do this? You're breaking my heart. Well, I'm being myself, but am I going to get the results that I want, which is to get her back? Probably not. But I found on several occasions when I do act nonchalant, hey, cool, it didn't work out. You do whatever you want to do. Well, then they want to come back to me. So in that case, I had to learn that, okay, so the new version of being myself now is not being so butthurt if these women change their mind about wanting to date me, because I'm going to actually get better results more often than not if I do. Another one, you not being able to approach women because you have anxiety. So let's say right now your version of being yourself is every time you go around a woman, you get anxious. Is that the kind of yourself you want to be? Wouldn't it be better for you to actually step out of who you are and start practicing even trying to say hi to women, whether it's at a grocery store or at a mall or whatever? Isn't it better to try online dating and try doing these different approaches versus saying, well, I'm just anxious, and so a girl's gonna have to approach me because that's just how I am? You could be yourself, but you're not gonna meet a lot of women that way because you're now relying on them instead of relying on yourself to forcefully make yourself do the work. And I know this is very, very hard for introvert guys, because introvert guys really don't want to go out there and try to put themselves out there and work towards something that might not get them results. But you got to ask yourself, is being that way allowing you to meet any women? Because women aren't going to know that you exist, and they're not going to know that even if they do see you, that you are possibly interested if you're not doing a little bit of something like stepping out and saying something. And that might not be the way you are now, but don't you want to be that way? Don't you want to be a guy that's not going to be flustered when he sees a girl that he wants to date? You got to think about that. Another thing, acting jealous when a woman gets contacted by her ex. So right now, version of you is if you're with your girl and her ex just texts her out of the blue and she wasn't trying to ever contact him, she wasn't trying to be in touch with him, but he decided to contact her. Do you want to be the guy that's going to be jealous and suddenly start yelling at her? If that's who you are right now, do you think that's going to be helpful to how she feels about you? Probably not. So wouldn't it be better in that moment when that happens and that text comes through to wait for a minute and see how she reacts to it, see what she says about it, see if she deletes the text, see if she blocks his number versus going all crazy? Because you're going to have better results if in that moment you decide, hey, I'm not going to be myself in terms of being this jealous guy. I'm going to try to be calm, cool, and collected because that's how I want to be. And then you let that happen and see what happens as a result. That's probably the better pathway for you, right? Another thing, let's say you meet one of her friends and you think she's really, really hot. In that moment, do you think that a good version of yourself would be to tell your girlfriend, oh, I think your girl's even hotter than you are? Is that going to be a beneficial version of being yourself that's going to make her feel better about her being with you? Probably not. So then you probably would not want to say something like that, even if your normal self probably would. Just like you wouldn't want her seeing a guy in public that has more muscles and has a better build and has a fancy car and telling you, oh, that guy looks hot and his car looks way better than yours. Do you want to hear that? Do you want her to have those real thoughts go through her head and then have her tell you her real thoughts in that moment? Probably not. Another thing, arguing with your woman about an opinion on something that doesn't actually matter and wanting to call her names. And when you're in a relationship, women are going to say a bunch of stuff to you over time that you're not going to agree with. And it's going to be in this plane where it's like it's an opinion about something that doesn't actually matter or relate to your guys' relationship or your lives. Do you need to be the guy that always says something because that's just who you normally are? Do you need to be the guy that's going to call her names or joke on her for this thing that you don't agree with that's going to make her feel bad? Well, it's how you are, right? So you should just do it because that's how you are and she should accept that, right? Or is it a thing where you could say, you know what, not everything to me needs to matter. Not everything needs to be a fight. If she has an opinion that I disagree with on something that's just doesn't really matter and is insignificant, I don't have to always voice my opinion or always give her pushback on that. Wouldn't you rather be that guy that ultimately is going to let the woman feel good to express herself and not think that she's going to be judged for it or made to feel bad about it every single time? Something to think about. Another thing, telling a woman she's overreacting to a situation with a coworker. So she might come to you and say, hey, I had the situation at my job and this happened and this girl said this thing and I felt this kind of way, this and that. You might think to yourself, this is no big deal. But A, is that something that's going to make her feel good? And also, how would you feel if she came to you and you expressed a situation to her about something that you feel in your life is personally going on, that she says, it's not big. That's no big deal. That's stupid to even worry about that. Would you want to feel that? But is that how you are now? And if it is how you are now, do you think that being that way is going to be beneficial overall to the relationship, to her feelings, and to her feeling that she's understood by you? These are things you got to really consider when you go into the whole I want to be myself argument, because just because you feel that you are some kind of way doesn't mean that the certain things that you're acting as A are the right way to react and also are beneficial to her feelings and the relationship overall. So sometimes for the benefit of the relationship, you have to examine how you're looking at the way that you're currently being and see if there's a way that you could be that could actually be better versus the way you're being now, which could be at times toxic and not helpful to the overall health of the relationship. And then last thing I'll say, another example of being yourself is telling her that sex with her sucked when she asked you immediately afterwards. Now, let's say I did a show recently about a guy that wanted to know how to handle the whole situation where a woman's not so great at sex. So right after you've had sex, do you want to say to the woman, because women will sometimes ask you, hey, so I had a great time. How was it for you? In that moment, right after you had sex, if it wasn't good for you, do you want to tell her that? You could risk it. I'm not saying you should never tell her, because I definitely believe there should be conversations in the relationship about sexual health and about what you find pleasurable, what she finds pleasurable, what both of you all could be doing to enhance the situation. But immediately after, are you the guy that right now is saying, it was just okay. It could be better. It's not really that great. Actually, it kind of sucked. Do you want to be that guy that's able to do that right after? Is that going to make her feel good? Is that going to make her want to try to work and strive to be a better partner in bed? Or could you, for the moment, say, I had a good time, and then later on possibly bring it up and say, hey, these are things that I think going forward could be great things to try in bed? And again, there's not necessarily a right or wrong to this, but what I am saying is all this is designed to make you think about what you consider as being yourself. Because again, being yourself is based on habits that you've learned and what's worked up to this point. But if you're finding that the way that you've had been up to this point hasn't been getting you results, hasn't been allowing you to keep women around, has been actually causing women to lose interest in you, then you may want to reconsider what those things are. And then once you start to learn some of the things that might work better, understand that when you learn those things, there's going to be a learning process that you have to go through in order to feel that these new things you're learning are now part of the new version of who you actually are. So I don't want you guys to think that the way that I date now is not the way I always dated. But what I just learned over time, there were things that I was doing that weren't working. I would try out new things, and at first they would not feel comfortable, because it's building habits and becoming comfortable with those habits means repetition. You got to do them over and over again. So, how I approach girls now is a lot more fluid than when I first tried doing it the way that I do it now early on, when it was kind of unnatural. It felt kind of weird, saying certain things, doing certain things. But understand, as you do these things more, they'll become more natural feeling. They'll become a part of who you are. And then you'll be able to feel authentic in those motions. But just like a basketball player that's at the top of his game right now didn't have those skills when he first started out, you can't expect to be trying new things and thinking when you first try them, they're going to feel natural to who you are. And that doesn't mean that you're not being who you are. If anything, you're being more of who you are because you're recognizing that there's a better way for you to be. And a man should always be about trying to build up to the next level to be able to build a better version of who he is, so that way he's more effective when he moves about the world. This is also true of dating, okay? And that's why I have a bunch of freebies at my website for you to get, so you can start working on those things, so you can start to really see an example of, like me, I'm an introverted guy that's been able to date very, very successfully. If you want those same results, then I have things at my website you can look at to start getting into the practice of doing some of these things that I now do naturally that did not come naturally at first, okay? So that's why I recommend you go to my website, you sign up for my freebies. I got some great handouts there, some PDFs, I got eBooks, and my program that's coming out on the 29th, my full program of introvert dating success course and coaching course is going to be able to walk you through how to be an effective dater to where you can feel you can still be your natural introverted self, but still be able to get women, still be able to have your alone time, still be able to relate to them in a way that's going to build attraction and keep it without having to completely change who you are. But it is going to give you processes that may feel unnatural at first, but will ultimately lead to a better relationship and dating life overall. So that's why I say to this guy and to you guys out there that no, it is not wrong to want to act in ways that you want to become, because we're always doing that in life anyway, whether it's trying to, learn skills for a new job, or whether it's trying to learn how to relate to people. You're always looking and striving to try to build to that next level. And sometimes that means having to act as if you're already there, even if it feels unnatural in the moment. Thank you for watching this episode of the Introvert Dating Success Show. If you found the info in this episode to be helpful, please show your support by clicking on the tip jar tab, the link of which can be found at the website and in the description below. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment on this episode, and catch new episodes every Monday and Thursday right here on YouTube or wherever podcasts can be found. In the meantime, be sure to check out my other episodes so you too can learn to date as your introverted self while still getting your precious alone time. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.